Good evening, everyone. This is mic test. Jordan, can you confirm that I am audible?
Yes, ma'am. You're audible.
Okay. So thank you everyone for joining this webinar and a very warm welcome on this webinar on AI for neurodiversity on behalf of REVA Academy for Corporate Excellence, REVA University. I am Dr. Shinu Abi, welcoming all of you again to this topic along with my team. Let me also introduce Usha Rengaraju, a Kaggle Grandmaster and an autism awareness champion who will lead this session today. Before we begin, a small introduction on why we are doing this particular topic on the webinar. There are many researchers today who are using AI and data science to develop various applications and tools for people with autism and other similar neuro disorders. One of the studies shows that if we are able to diagnose autism before the child turns 2 years, that can increase the child's IQ by almost 17 points. And this can improve the quality of the child's life in the later years. Our endeavor in this webinar is to help persons with autism and other neuro disorders to lead quality of life with the help of technologies like AI. Usha has been championing and advocating equal opportunities for autism affected persons with many organizations. She has led many crusades, many campaigns across organizations, and tried to bring more awareness about this issue. We are so glad that Usha, that you are going to help us understand the importance of creating this awareness, as well as how different use cases we can develop with the help of technologies like AI, so that we can help them to develop or improve their quality of life. And this webinar is going to be an hour long. We are live on GoToWebinar as well as YouTube platform. We request you all to share your questions and comments through the chat window. We will curate them and get them answered by Usha in the end. You can also definitely must connect with Usha, especially if you are representing by any way that any of the autism initiatives. Please do connect with us and Usha directly so that we can take this research as well as initiatives forward. So over to you, Usha. Looking forward to a great session, and participants and those who are joining, we are also looking forward to please stand by till for an hour with the session so that you can learn and contribute in this noble cause. Over to you, Usha.
Thank you so much, Shainu ma'am, for spearheading the entire initiative. Shainu ma'am has been the front person, the person who has, led the initiative from the beginning to the end, be it organizing Kaggle competition and a lot of other things. She's been very supportive for the cause, and I don't know, no words is enough to thank her. Thank you so much, ma'am. And with this, we'll get started with AI for neurodiversity. And this the session is structured in such a way that the first half of the session is setting the context and also making people understand what autism is, and that autism is a spectrum, and there are a lot of nuances about autism which not many people are aware of, and setting the context right. And then we will move on to a lot of open AI use cases, which as data scientists, if you're attending the session, you can take it up as a social cause project and go forward. Most of the use cases are doable, and there are a lot of open source data sets already available out there. So we'll be discussing some of the use cases. And so with this, we'll get started. Yeah, I've taken a lot of pictures from a lot of online resources. So all the credit will be there in the slides and the references section. And we'll get started with what is definition of neurodiversity. So there's a lot of neurodiversity hiring process which is happening across India and across the globe. And a few years back when I started the campaign, even people from a clinical background, when I say the word neurodiversity, they would ask me what is neurodiversity. And so in India, awareness about neurodiversity was even very, very less a few years back, even as close as 2 years back. But now the situation is improving. So neurodiversity, it is just a concept where we say the brain differences are not abnormal. So, conditions like ADHD, autism, they're not abnormal. They're just variations of the brain. And so this is the whole concept of neurodiversity. And there are a lot of mental health conditions which fall under the spectrum of neurodiversity, be it dyslexia, ADHD, autism, dyspraxia, epilepsy, and these are the various, mental health conditions which falls under the spectrum of neurodiversity. But the most familiar ones are the ADHD, dyslexia, autism, and epilepsy. So the focus of this session will be only on autism, and in particular on the higher end of the spectrum of autism. And I would also like to give a disclaimer that my research and my understanding is only on the higher end of the autism spectrum, and I'm not very familiar with the lower end of the autism spectrum or the other more of people, autistic people with dependency conditions. I'm not very aware, or my research is very limited, and I just want to give this disclaimer. And the neurodiversity in India, one of the biggest difficulties which I face as an advocate for autism is whenever I talk about autism, there are a lot of people get very uncomfortable, and they shut off the conversations. They're not very comfortable talking about autism. So there's a lot of social stigma in India. So only if the social, so there should be a lot of awareness campaign out there to destigmatize autism. People should talk more about autism, and particularly there's a lack of awareness of the higher end of the autism spectrum. So higher end of the autism spectrum, people are more independent. Therefore, functioning, they're able to carry out their day-to-day activities, and they're also quite capable of being employed in an organizations. And a lot of organizations have started hiring autistic people on the higher end of the spectrum. And some of the organizations like SAP and HP and a lot of other organizations have reported, even up to $40 million in savings by hiring autistic people. And so neurodiversity, there's a case study from Harvard Business Review which says neurodiversity is a competitive advantage. So there are a lot of famous people on the autistic spectrum. So of course, autism is not just about geniuses. And people on the spectrum, are having varied abilities and varied characteristics. Some of them are gifted, not all of them are gifted. There are a lot of stereotypes about autism, but there are very gifted people on the autism who have achieved a lot. And some of them who have achieved a lot was Thomas Edison, Beethoven, Thomas Jefferson, Mark Twain. There are a lot of gifted people who have achieved a lot. But one thing common in a lot of high achieving autistic people from the 18th century, 17th century is that, during their lifetime, there were a lot of autistic people, they were continuously criticized. And as beyond their lifetime is when, people started appreciating, their efforts, their, gifts and all of it. Had they been very receptive to them during their lifetime, maybe they would have achieved more. Even with all that stereotypes and all that bullying and all that, they were still able to achieve a lot. And I think they would have been able to achieve more, if they were not given a very good, comfortable conditions. So these are other famous people like Mozart, and Richard Strauss, George Bernard Shaw, Van Gogh, even Abraham Lincoln, U.S. First black president. Even he is, autistic person. So Isaac Newton, Charles Darwin, Henry Ford, Emily Dickinson. So there are a lot of famous people, on the spectrum. If you take the current age, I think Elon Musk is very, very, trending the Twitter right now. A lot of them is coming out of about Elon Musk. Elon Musk is told in a television interview that he is openly autistic. And there are other people like Steve Jobs, Microsoft founder Bill Gates. A lot of people are openly autistic people. Microsoft, I think Bill Gates hasn't told he is openly autistic, but there are a lot of articles about him being autistic. But Elon Musk is openly autistic. And these are the other people who are from the, this current 21st century who are autistic and who many of them know. And Lionel Messi, the famous one of the top football players, is also an autistic person. He is diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and he's one of the brilliant players and the best footballers, for the current, past generation. So a lot of times I see, people talk about diversity and inclusion, but then when I ask them, do you know what is neurodiversity? They say, no, they haven't heard of neurodiversity. So neurodiversity and is the fundamental dimension of diversity because it, transcends race, color, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, all of it. So you will find autistic people who are from LGBTQ background. You will find black autistic people. You will find transgender autistic people. So it is a fundamental dimension of diversity which transcends all of the conditions: race, ethnicity, color, sexual orientation, whatever it is. So unless and until a diversity and inclusion initiative includes neurodiversity, it's still incomplete. So, all the initiatives which are being spearheaded by the corporate organization should also try and discuss about including, some of the neurodiversity along with their other initiatives. You can start simple by including a neurodiverse, or whenever they organize an event, they would ensure there are at least a couple of women speakers because they wanted to maintain gender diversity. So, they would try and get in a couple of women speakers. Along with it, you can also make other inclusions, like why not try and get at least one neurodiverse person, in the panel. If you try and hard and get few women speakers on the panel discussion, then try and ensure you also have one neurodiverse person. And most of the team structures, they feel there should be at least a couple of women in the team. Then try also and get few neurodiverse people on the team. So the team composition is quite diverse. So when you say diversity, if you do not include neurodiversity, it's still very incomplete. So this is just a quote from online. I've taken it. So genuine inclusion is something which stuck to me very closely. Genuine inclusion is not about ticking off another box of some diversity checklist. We must ensure we are aligning people of all abilities and supports needs to their strength. We all benefit when we have opportunities to interact with minds different from our own. So, yeah. So there are a lot of organizations who are having, autism hiring programs specifically. Some of them have it under the umbrella of neurodiversity hiring programs, but there are a lot of organizations who very specifically have autism hiring programs. So these are some of the organizations. Microsoft, Google Cloud has already announced it last year in the May. They've given a statement and a blog in their official website as well. And EY, Ford, JP Morgan Chase, Freddie Mac, SAP is one of the biggest, advocates for autism. And one of the common problems in India which the organizations face is, they want to hire autistic people, but then, they are not able to find autistic people attending the interviews, or they're not, able to find the candidates. So it's either the autistic people are not coming forward and applying for jobs, or there's no specific forum which will connect the autistic employees and the employers who are willing to hire them. So there's all that gap which needs to be bridged. So one thing which the problems with high functioning autistic people is whenever a high functioning autistic person is open about their autistic abilities, the first thing which people say, you don't look autistic. The reason why people say you don't look autistic, and because at the subconscious mind they have a picture that autistic people means like they shake their heads, they walk like this, they are like very much dependent. That's their at the subconscious mind, that's a picture they have. But autism is a spectrum. People are in the spectrum, people are with varying abilities, and you cannot generalize them. So some of the good good qualities of autistic people are, or some of them have very high intelligence. The intelligence can be in academics, or it could be in drawing, or it could be in sports, and it could be anything. So you should let the autistic kid be if they're having a specific interest on certain thing, you should just let them be and not force them into something else. If they're interested in sports, then that's the best thing. You should just let them be in the area or zone of their interest. And they have high intelligence. It's not necessarily academics. Intelligence can take many forms. It can be any of the art. And a lot of autistic people have, again, I just want to stress the fact that autistic people have, you cannot generalize anything for autism, because it's a spectrum and there are people with varying abilities and skills. So I'm just highlighting some of the good qualities of some of the autistic people. They have they pay careful attention to detail, they can do intense commitment to high quality work. They're also very creative. Most of them are very creative, out of the box thinking, their ability to hyper focus, and their high energy levels. At most of the times, most of the children have both autism and ADHD, so that's why they have very high energy levels and an ability to hyper focus. So for artificial intelligence jobs, so people with autism, can focus on same job. Non-autistic people or allistic people might get bored when they do the same thing over and over and again, but an autism person may not. Not all of them. Most of them, they don't, get tired. So they're very good at doing repetitive things, and they're also very good with pattern matching skills. There are several research papers which say, they're very good with pattern matching skills. And artificial intelligence, a part of artificial intelligence also involves pattern matching. So autistic people make a good hire for data scientist roles and AI roles as well. There's a specific research publications which has been published, saying autistic people are great hires for AI jobs. I would highly recommend everyone check that out. And there are several organizations who are hiring autism, and out of them, I want to highlight few of them, specifically SAP. SAP initiatives are tremendous. So if you see, SAP went ahead and educated all of its employees, about even the allistic people, they had a sensitization program across the organizations across the globe. And so that, everyone in the organization is aware about autism as a spectrum and how people in the autism spectrum behave. And they had a sensitization program globally. And SAP is also has done several initiatives and spearheaded for, even in India and outside India. And we had great number of people participating in Neurodiversity India Summit. And again, Neurodiversity India Summit is India's first ever conference in neurodiversity, which was organized by me in 2021 and 2020 in December 19, 2020 and December 19, 2021. We had a lot of speakers from SAP. SAP was one of the first companies to come out and support. And so SAP is also the Harvard Business Review. SAP has also reported that by hiring autistic people, they were able to have $40 million in savings. So it's mutual, like the autistic people also get benefited from the hiring programs, and the organizations also get, equally benefited by hiring them. They were for their most of them have out of the box thinking, creative thinking abilities. Again, I use a word most of them because people are very different across the spectrum and you cannot generalize. So but most of them have the certain abilities, which is what I'm trying to highlight. And so this is a picture which is common across several research papers. So autistic people are more visual. So when you're designing learning programs or any of the programs, if you can add a lot of visualizations, or if you can adopt to a visual way of teaching, that might benefit autistic kids and autistic adults as well. If you're designing a learning program, keeping in mind that there are a lot of neurodiverse people and autistic people who might be watching that, and you should also try to include more of visualizations to help them get most of the benefits from the course. And as much as allistic people have the ability to process what is heard, autistic people are compensated with a very good ability, better ability to process what is seen. As much as the neurodiversity movement and autism hiring movement is kicking across the globe, and while it is, while it's seeing a bigger adoption rate in Western countries like US, UK, and the other developed countries, in India, there's a lot of challenges in adoption because there's a lot of social stigma. So people, even if they're autistic, they may not come out and say they're autistic because of a lot of discrimination, harassment, and bullying. They're afraid of all the consequences of being openly autistic. So in India, there's still a lot of challenges for the organizations, even though they have such programs, and most of them are unable to find autistic people. And they still, some of them wanted to adopt such programs, but they have, they wanted to know if there are any organizations or if there is any community where they can go and hire people. And even if such communities exist, autistic people are very scared to come out and be openly autistic because of the social stigma attached in the society. And this way of living a double life will cause a lot of depression. And there is a statistics which has come out in one of the recently published paper. The mortality rates of autistic adults and is very, very high, extraordinarily high rates of death by suicide from autistic people. So one of the reasons why there's a death, such extraordinarily high rates of death by suicide is because of the social stigma attached in the society. A lot of people hide their autism, and that causes a lot of depression. You're actually someone, but then you're trying to actually be someone else. That leads to a lot of depression. So that's why it's very, very important to create awareness and destigmatize, so that people are more comfortable, saying when people are openly autistic, it's very good for the employers or people around them because they can understand them better. At the same time, it is very easy for the autistic people also because you spend a lot of energy trying to be someone else, and yeah, you try to be someone else. So this is very, very important. And so one of the biggest, even if there are a lot of hiring programs, even if there are a lot of initiatives by organization, only if there is significant amount of awareness and destigmatization happens, these programs can achieve their full potential, or can achieve whatever success they want to, only if there is enough sufficient awareness. So otherwise, even if the programs are there, people wouldn't come forward and make use of that opportunity. And even if they going to be openly autistic and make use of the opportunity, there could be additional consequences which they are exposed to. or the initiatives may not be successful. So for such initiatives to be successful, the first problem which has to be fixed is creating an awareness. People should be comfortable saying they're openly autistic, and they should not be bullied or harassed for being openly autistic. That's the first step. And a lot of times people say they're depressed, but then when they start talking to somebody, they still feel better, right? And if you're going to be covering up everything and not telling who you are, that itself is going to be a lot of level of depression. So in India, this is the current state of autism awareness in India. And so there's a lot of groundwork which has to happen in this space. So I'm a data scientist by profession, and I'm very much interested, and I'm exploring a lot of AI-based applications for autism. And one of the significant cases where autism can help is in the early diagnosis of autism. A lot of them, or a lot of people whom I'm very close to, have autistic kids, and some of them in US. There are a lot of centers in US which has got very, very, very good clinical support. A lot of cities have got great clinical support, and just because their kids got diagnosed very early, and the people are able to, the kids are able to have a fully functioning independent lives because they were diagnosed early, before 2 years. And I have friends who are in US, who were able to give very good treatments for their autistic kids because of the kind of clinical support which is available there. But at the same time, I also have a friend in India who's not from a Tier 1 city, and she also has an autistic kid, but in spite of being diagnosed early, and she was not able to give the right kind of clinical support. So that is also a problem in India, that only the major cities have got good clinical support for autism. And even amongst the major cities like Bangalore, and a very few cities which has got significant amount of support. And the people from the other cities, Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, have to travel, make a career shift or make a huge shift, come and stay in the major cities. And the expenses and treatment is also very expensive because there are very few places offering it. And the quality of treatment is again cannot be matched up with cities in US and other developed countries. So India has a lot of catching up to do with regards to the clinical treatment. And so a lot of problems can be, solved if there is going to be an early diagnosis of autism. Early diagnosis makes the is very, very important, because the neural wiring happens. A lot of neural wiring happens before the child is 5 years old. So an early diagnosis can really help, in making the child, dependent and independent. And also that is why early diagnosis is very, very crucial. And AI can play a huge role. AI can play a huge role in early diagnosis of autism. There's a research from Stanford University which has come out that early diagnosis, not just with responses from people, early diagnosis can also be made from the fMRI scans as well. And so there's a lot of research which is happening in Stanford, but one of the popular diagnosis tool is predictive assessment, which is also happening. And so there are several, the diagnostic tools are not just based on questionnaires. The diagnosis now is also based on fMRI scans. And these scans are reportedly, a lot of research papers right now which are coming out say they are very good predictors of early diagnosis of autism. And so there are significant applications of early diagnosis of autism. So, and the next effect is the next couple of use cases is about emotion recognition. So autistic people have significant difficulties in understanding emotions, and so AI can play a huge role in that aspect as well. There are a lot of products which has already come out, like the Google Glass and a lot of such products, but they're not being fully adopted across the globe. And the expenses, and there are a lot of other factors which is making it inaccessible to a lot of people in India. And so yeah, that and AI for emotion recognitions. When you say emotion recognitions from audio, which is, people find understanding sarcasm, people find it very, very difficult to understand sarcasm or certain emotions and tones. And people also in the voice, and it also people also find it difficult to understand social cues and facial expressions as well. So AI can play a huge role in both understanding emotions recognitions from the voice and the face. So there's a lot of applications. Why it is important is, see, all of us have very limited mental resources. So every decision you make, every action you do consumes a mental resource. So if autistic people are going to pay, it's not like they cannot identify emotions at all. They can, but if they're going to struggle a lot and use a lot of their mental resources, put an additional amount of effort to do these tasks, then that exhausts some of the mental resources which they have, which in turn, which they can use it for the other day-to-day activities. So the tools like Google Class and other technological tools which can make these jobs easier, then they can use their mental resources more effectively. And so that's why technological interventions is very, very important. So as I was highlighting, there's a lot of questionnaire-based diagnosis, but particularly today morning I came across a startup Cognable, which was run by an IISc professor and other professors from IIT Delhi. And so this is even listed in one of the top 10 UNICEF United Nations startups for social cause as well. And so most of these startups like them, they have a questionnaire-based diagnosis or predictive assessment. And but the recent research is also moving more towards the fMRI, predicting early diagnostics from the fMRI scans or the brain scans as well. So there are a lot of neuroimaging-based diagnosis which is coming up, and I would highly recommend reading out that Stanford paper which has come out recently. So one of the significant use cases is in early diagnosis. The other significant use cases is understanding emotions. So understanding emotions is very, very important, because people, if you do not understand the emotions really well, you might give different reactions. That's also one of leads to bullying or leads to misunderstanding, and lots of other things follow suit. And so understanding emotions can help autistic people in a lot of ways. And so deep learning for computer vision can play a huge role, whether it's under identifying emotions from audio data or identifying emotions from facial expressions. So deep learning for computer vision plays a huge part. So there's other significant, there's a lot of research papers which has come out with regards to using how to use deep learning for understanding emotions from audio data. There are a lot of data sets which are available in Kaggle itself for understanding emotions, which you can check it out, and a lot of research which has already come out. I just happened to see a couple of weeks back, came across a particular startup which has actually developed a product called Brain Power, and they've developed a couple of apps as well, which I'm not sure if these apps are still existing, but they have developed a very beautiful app for emotion technicians, for teaching people with autism, how to teach emotions. The app is all about, teaching them emotions. Different kind of the same person's picture with different emotions will be shown, and the kid has to choose the particular face, matches the particular face with the right kind of emotion. So there are a lot of products which has already come out, but for some reason those products which have started out as not reached a lot of people, have closed down in few months of starting, or even the Google Class is not in production right now. So there were a lot of products which was developed above on the top of Google Class. There was a lot of technological implementations done, but it's not available across the globe, and it's definitely not available for people in India. There are a lot of people in India who are not able to get access to these kind of technological developments. So there's a lot of scope for scope and innovation, applying scope, innovation, and creativity to build products which is even accessible from people in developing countries, from people in remote areas, and we shouldn't be that expensive, so we should be made accessible to a lot of people from across the globe. That's more important. So these are some of the use cases in AI which can help. So if people are looking out for projects, whether you're a university student or a data scientist who's passionate about contributing to the community, then you can pick up these use cases, build an open source platform for autistic people, and that way you would also be developing for social good, and in a way you'll also be creating an awareness about autism as well. So this is about Google Glass, and there were a lot of startups who, built several technology on top of Google Glass, but for some reason, the Google Glass isn't accessible across the globe. Yeah, some of the references which I had used in the slides are from Harvard Business Review and Washington Post. So with this, my presentation comes to an end. I would hand it over to Shainu ma'am.
Thank you so much, Usha. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, ma'am, I'm able to hear.
Okay. So thank you so much. I think it was very, very informative, and most of us shun away from such discussions openly because either we know some of them in our own families, or maybe we know them in close quarters, and we know the difficulty the parent and the relatives go through if we have autistic or people with neural disorders among ourselves. And it's a great boon that today technology can help all of them to some extent, at least to ease their pain. And we are so glad that many organizations are opening up their doors to these ideas and helping them to find better jobs, better lives. And we are so glad, Usha, that you have taken this course, and the passion and the commitment you have shown. We are so glad that we are part of this not just the webinar. So we also would want to bring the attention of all the participants here that we are running a competition. This is mainly for data science community, that based on certain data sets which are available, can you predict the likelihood of autism? And this is one of the competitions that which we are running. And we are so glad that immediately there are many organizations who have come towards sponsoring the winners, like Infosys, Swiss Ray, Terralogic. There are Spark sponsors, and Usha is also leading this competition and helping us to be part of the jury panel who would decide on the winners. If you have not registered, we would request all of you to look at the Kaggle competition and participate actively, and not just stop here. We request all of you, maybe the big request is that let not you attend just one webinar and then forget about it. If you are a true data scientist, along with your job, being a commercial data scientist, I think as Usha mentioned, maybe spend some time on a social course like this. If this interest, this you think that is a course that you want to contribute. So again, a request to look at this competition and do the needful. Usha, can you just go to the next slide? Yeah, we just want to quickly introduce what do we do. Reva Academy for Corporate Excellence, Reva University has been a pioneering entity doing corporate trainings, master's programs for working professionals in data science, AI, cybersecurity, cloud technologies. And we also are very focused on some space in social courses like social disorders, learning disorders mainly, and edutech for underprivileged kids primary school education. So these are some of the social causes that we are doing research on. And those who are interested to be part of these initiatives, please do connect with us or Usha directly. And just to give you little background of Usha, if you can just move to the next slide. Yeah, so please connect with us. We have a very, very vibrant ecosystem where 1,000+ participants who come from various marquee organizations going through our programs, doing research and contributing their might to some of these social causes with the help of 50+ senior leaders as trainers and mentors. And these webinars and more on very pertinent topics we have been consistently doing to create awareness among the community. Please do connect to our YouTube channel where you can find 4,000+ YouTube videos, very informative YouTube videos that you may get a glimpse of what do we do here, and various research projects, especially on the edutech as well as learning disabilities that we are partnering today with organizations and building as part of our social cause initiatives. Next slide. Yeah, so these are some of the program portfolios. We don't want to take away the attention to these, but those who are interested, please. So we have a set of programs in analytics, AI, cybersecurity, cloud architecture, product development, etc., and a series of short-term and long-term programs for professionals who want to fast-track their careers and get into these emerging technologies. And all our programs are top-ranked AICTE, UGC-approved programs. So therefore, what you will get is a life-transforming learning opportunities with the help of mentors and the delivery team here. So we look forward to connect you on these things. And just to bring back the attention to Usha's, those who have not asked any questions, please note that if you have messaged, do let us know. Or else we are getting very good comments, Usha, that the information has been very useful. Most of the time this has not been discussed. So most of these informations were new to most of them. And some of the questions that which has come, I would just curate. The first question that they want to ask is that how theoretical and how applied are these research in autism, at least among what you know? Is it more of theoretical research, or are there products which are applied research where they can actually use and have commercially available for autistic people? This is one of the questions. Usha, you can just go back and close this towards the end, and then you can answer that question.
Ma'am, have you finished this slide also?
Yes.
So see, there are products which are already which came out in 2018, 19, and there were products which has come out and which were quite successful as well to an extent. But for some reason, maybe these startups did not receive sufficient, because these are social startups. And of course, you may not receive that kind of higher end profits, but the startups require some amount of money to function for a lot of reasons why these startups don't exist. But they started with good intentions, and this was run by an MIT, people from MIT collaborating with Google and all that. I think it's called Brain Power. You can go and check out. They had few products which has come out. There are a lot of YouTube videos about it as well. So they were quite successful in building a product to teach emotions for autism people. They also have a 2-minute video of it on YouTube, which is, you can go and check it out. So all these research papers are not just theoretical, they are having good significant amount of applications when used the right way, and when guided the right way, and they can definitely benefit autistic people. So I've also been reading a lot about psychology and neuroscience and a lot of it. One of the topics which really interested me was neuroplasticity, ability of the brain to rewire itself. I would totally agree with this whole concept of neurodiversity. So personally, my psychology and neuroscience journey started quite at least some 8 to 10 years back, and I was very much fascinated by these fields and started experimenting with neuroplasticity. There were a lot of things which I was not very good at. But for me, like, if I can, do certain things a different way and keep working on certain things persistently over a period of my time, I thought, I could rewire myself and, rewire my affinity towards certain things. So this was my personal experiment, which I was experimenting with a lot of things. So this was a combination of thought process from psychology, neuroplasticity from neuroscience, and also some of the self-development people who have, who had done a lot of research about willpower, Roy Baumeister, and there are a lot of research about, you know, uh, grit, and there are a lot of research about grit, and how you persistently work over a period of time, you get good at certain things. So this is from a bit of self-development, neuroscience, and a combination of psychology. So I was reading a lot of these technologies, and I just did not just read it theoretically and drop it off there. I was also experimenting with my own personal life on different things, and I was able to get good at things which I was not good, or develop an affinity towards certain things which I used to hate, just by through these experiments. So I think it is definitely possible with experimenting the certain way. So when I shared these experiments with a lot of my peers, and I was telling them, it was not working out for them. So, so you have to understand what works for you. You have to understand your own psychology really well for it to work, because things which might work for few people may not. So, designing those experiments really which works out for you, and doing it that own way is something which, requires a lot of hard work. So I personally believe that these papers which has come out as significant potential to help autistic people, because of the concept. I believe in the concept of neuroplasticity. So it is really, really possible to rewire your brain, and some of the experiments which I conducted on my own self, proved that. And there's a lot of research which is coming currently out from our neuroplasticity as well. And rewiring is very easy at an early stage. Rewiring is difficult for adults, but then rewiring, before 5 years, rewiring your brain is very, very easy. And that's why early diagnosis helps a lot. So yeah, this is my answer for the question. So this is not just theoretical, they have a lot of potential to revolutionize the world. And I strongly believe in that.
Okay. Yeah, I can see the optimism in your voice, and I'm sure you yourself would be championing a lot of initiatives in this direction. Thanks, Usha. Another question that I think there are multiple questions. One is that do really AI can help in improving social skills of autistic people? Will it help? Social skills.
So AI helping and social skills of autistic people, I'm really not sure. That's still experimental, and if given a thought in that direction, might help. So to be able to understand social cues when it comes for social skills, I would, there's a huge bigger dimension when we say social skills. One of the social skills which we would say is being able to communicate in a social setting or in a professional environment as well, being able to communicate and understand the communication both ways is very, very important. So for being able to communicate, you need to understand what the other person is saying. Now, autistic people may not get sarcasm at a lot of times, and may not get the jokes. You can't say autistic people are not sarcastic at all. They have their own way of sarcasm, and they have their own way of joking around. So, there is no such rule that, the jokes, these kind of jokes are good, these kind of jokes are bad. So autistic people are just few in number. So they have their own way of joking, and so they may not be able to understand an allistic person's jokes. That's all. And so to use technology, so there's a lot of scope for us to use technologies for them to help understand the people who are neurologically different from them. So given the fact that if they can understand them, then they may be able to work around that. But if they're not even able to understand that, then they may not be able to do at all, because they just don't understand, they just don't realize it. So here the gap between here what we have to try and do is making autistic people understand that the allistic people are neurologically different from them, and helping them understand the allistic people, and also educating the allistic people about it. So it has to be both ways for the social communication to work. Definitely, understanding emotions, understanding, detecting sarcasm from voice, understanding social cues, body language, and all of this can have significant use cases in AI. So one thing is, see, for an if it's an equipment like Google Glass, which an autistic kid is training, see, you train continuously for 2-3 years. Your neural wiring starts every time you keep training your neural wiring. The learning happens, the brain keeps learning. So maybe after 2-3 years of using a particular device where we have rewired the entire brain, maybe the autistic person may not require that technological device after 3-4 years. The brain itself would have rewired, and it would have become an just very easy for them to detect it after a period of, maybe it's only the initial significant push, using technology for them to understand the people around, neurologically different people around them. So it's only the initial, push using technology which has to be done. Maybe after 2-3 years of using it or interpreting it, then become the second nature for them to understand people, and sarcasm, jokes, and all these things. So you can't, when you say social context, it's a very, very bigger dimensions. But there are few things which we can handle through AI for sure, but everything cannot be handled. But there are other things which are non-AI, non-technological, which can help. So there are a lot of research done by a psychologist. His first name is Robert. I don't know this, I forgot the second name. And he has done 40 years of research just on micro expressions. This research was funded for US military initially, and but for some reasons US military did not take up. So they studied people, so many faces, understanding emotions, understanding the concepts of micro expression. So the micro expression concept is, even if a person is lying, person is actually lying, but then a person might say something else, but actually think something else under the brain. The small amount of expression which gets released, which is something which the person themselves cannot control. So it's very, if you can pay a lot of attention and you can easily capture this micro expression. He has also developed some tools for identifying micro expressions, some softwares as well. So even I was experimenting with micro expression because I was learning a lot of psychology, understanding people, and all that. Even I was more interested towards psychology, and more on the criminal investigation side and all that. I have a family from police, and I also have a family from advocacy and all that. Sort of natural curiosity, I started experimenting with micro expressions and all that. It's basically for lie detection, but micro expressions can also be used by autistic people as well to detect emotions, but that requires a significant amount of training. So these are options available, but sometimes it might become very difficult to train an autistic kid on everything. We might think these are avenues and opportunities available, but sometimes we cannot force an autistic kid to sit and train on micro expression. If they don't like it, then they don't like it. So there are a lot of options available outside technology as well. One is micro expressions, and there's a lot of other things out there as well. So there's definitely a combination of technology, psychology, psychiatry, all of it put together might work out. Yeah.
Yeah, we understand, Usha. It is like a parent who has an autistic or neuro disorders. I think the data scientist who has taken this field also must be patient enough to know that it's not going to be the regular AI building, because the data is difficult to come by. And the next question is also on the same thing, that are you getting the support from, or are you or the data scientist, where are they getting the support on the data itself? Are there medical professionals ready to share the data, or the autistic people, somewhere the data is collected, both not just on the questionnaire that which typically most of us are aware, but the real data of the visual, video, images, micro expressions which you mentioned. What is the state of data today?
So the micro expressions was data was collected over a period of 40 years across the globe from different ethnicities, different countries, and all that. And how they had collected the data, they've put it on their website. He is a professor. One of the person is a professor, and he has collaborated with another person as well. So that is about the micro expression. With regards to autism data sets, there are a lot of varied forms of data set, not just questionnaires. It's also you have a lot of visual footages, lot of audio footages of autistic people, how they speak, kids mostly. And all of it is captured and is available in the internet in various forms. But some of the data sets, most of them, you have to write to the research paper authors requesting for the data, and also mention if you're using it for a commercial purpose or a research papers. Most of the authors might agree to give it for a research papers, but for a commercial papers, then you might have to have a conversation with the research paper authors, and take it forward. It's upon their discretion, but the data sets are already available. So the researchers have collaborated with the clinical institutes or an autism foundation or an autism organization, and already have spent 2-3 years collecting the data, and that's how they use that as a basis for writing research papers. So there are a lot of research papers which has come out on autism. So there's a lot of data which is already available out there, but it's not openly available under open license. You might have to write to the research paper authors, and most of them have openly mentioned in their websites that they are open to giving their research data for research purposes, provided you write significant amount of paragraph on how you're going to use the data set and all that, and they would see that synopsis which you write and then approve it. But for a commercial purposes, it's upon the description of the data owners, whether you have to have conversation and discuss it and take it forward. Yeah. Or you might have to spend a significant amount of time collaborating with local hospitals and developing designing a data creation plan and working out like that.
Yeah, so I think if one is willing, data is available, and maybe we must also reach out to these communities and ecosystem that, or set up some ways to collect this data. Okay, we understand. Maybe the last question, and one of the simple question that which has come, and the most pertinent question is that the real families which are affected by autism, and the people, how can we actually create awareness as well as make it affordable for them to use these technologies? What is the thought? I know it's a grand question that all of us want answers, but how do we reach out to the families who are affected and make these solutions available to them? Are there movement in that direction?
So this is still an open area. There are few autism communities present here and there, and even I'm getting to know them about them, recently because I started advocating about autism. A lot of people reach out to me, and a lot of parents started reaching out to me, but very discreetly. So that shows that there's still a lot of stigma. I've seen a lot of educated parents still having a lot of difficulties in being, open about their child's autism because of the society, their in-laws within the family. Also, there's a lot of stress, and if there are 2-3 kids, then if a kid is going to be autistic, then there will be a differential treatment and all that. And so there's a lot of stigma and a lot of difficulties emotionally as well. And the parents, as I always say, everyone has very limited amount of mental resources, and if a parent is going to be significantly work, also there's a pressure if it's a working parent, and then personal life, and then dealing with the stigmas, and also there's a lot of challenges in bringing up an autistic kid. So there's a lot, and that's why there's a lot of divorce rates. Lot of parents on the autism spectrum get divorced because of the extreme pressure and involved in raising an autistic child. And there are a lot of them, it's just because this parents go through a lot. It's not very easy to bring up an autistic kid, And so, if we can bring up this, so that's why it's very important to create an awareness, and de-stigmatize this. Reaching out to this, maybe we can start a community for autism parent. That is also a technology, that can be a technological product if you're a web developer, or if you have good web development skills, building a autism parent network. I mean, that's a very good idea, building up. There might be few networks here and out there, but that's not widely known to a lot of people. So creating such networks using, if your product development skills or web development skills, Flutter or anything, Android or whatever it is, you can develop a mobile app or web development app to bring together parents of autism, because, just sharing, a parent sharing the experiences which they go through day to day with another autistic person can relieve their burden. Just speaking about it can definitely reduce the depression and stress. So if they're all brought together, and they can also share their experience of what worked for their child, and so bringing together parents under autism parent network might be a very, very good idea. And also having autistic adults communities and autistic kids communities, might also be a very good idea. So, that's also an idea for open projects or open source projects. These are some of the ideas. At the moment, I am not aware of any specific communities out there. There might be few which is not very popular, but if there is some community like that, it might really, really help the autistic people, autistic parents, because parents, they go through extreme stress. And so, it can be, and making it affordable. I think AI is always an affordable solution, because for social cause there are a lot of cloud providers, or a lot of hardware organizers. So most of them are very much willing to support any social cause projects. And so there are a lot of research initiatives which all of the cloud providers provide, under which they give free cloud credits, to train your model, or even to conduct your end-to-end research. A lot of benefits comes under these initiatives, which is provided by many of the corporate organizations. So, you can, if you are very much interested in open source development, and if you want to create a cost-free product, you can reach out to these organizations and make use of these benefits, which can help you create a product free of cost. If most of the times, if it's going to be a video or audio data, there could be extensive GPU power which is required, or TPU powers. Most of the cloud providers provide the free resources if it's a project for a social cause. So building an AI solution can be for no cost, and we can provide it for free, making it open source, and providing it for a very, very lesser cost to the people in remote cities is also a good option. And also the corporate organizations, they wanted to do something for neurodiversity, but they're clueless on where to start. So as a part of corporate social responsibilities, maybe you can give a certain product which is used for identifying emotions for free to certain number of people living in remote cities in India. And you can set up such corporate initiatives to reach more and more people. So AI can be a cost-effective solutions. It's as a product, if it's released, but where you can release it as a product with minimal cost. So there's a huge potential. Using AI, you can develop products which are accessible to people even in poorer countries and from very, very remote cities. That's definitely possible. With regards to the parents, definitely an autistic parent goes through an extreme stress more than the autistic kids themselves. Parents go through extreme stress. There's a report saying a lot of autistic parents get divorced because of the extreme stress which they go through. So having a network like that might relieve their stress and depression to greater extent. Just sharing or just finding someone to speak about it can relieve their depression to a larger extent. So having a community for autistic parents, are also having a community for adult autistic people also can help a lot. These are some of the potential ideas for open source projects, or open source projects for social cause, which the data scientists and product developments, or software engineers out here can try it out.
Absolutely with you, Usha. I think it's a call for everyone who is attending. If you are a parent, if you represent your organization, or if you are a data scientist, or if you are just an onlooker who just happened to be in this webinar, you also have a role to play in building this community as well as solutions that which we all aspire to be part of. So do connect for further. Maybe that is the best thing that which we can get out of this webinar. So the last slide, if you could put up, Usha. Yeah, a few contact details if you want to know more about our research initiatives, more about programs, what do we do here, next webinar, or anything that you want to contribute towards this specific topic on autism. Do connect to any of the numbers or connect directly to us through LinkedIn. We would be happy to interact with each of you. So with this, Usha, it has been incredible and truly obliged and happy to see people like you are spending your precious time on this noble cause, which is going to take away which needs your attention, your time and energy and skills. And we are so glad, and we hope that more and more people join your tribe and increase the awareness towards it as well as develop solutions. And we are with you in this journey. So with this, thank you so much for all of you to be there patiently being part of this webinar, and do connect with us for the next webinar as well as continuing the conversations on this webinar. With that, thank you, Usha, again, and thank you everyone. Good night. See you all soon. Thank you.